thinks
Thinks
about
about
food.
food.
Correct. So they want us to think about how we get our food from factories rather than fields. We must grow what we consume, but we must also change mindsets and build dignity into food production. Now, you see that
Interesting.
word dignity again,
Yeah,
because what
yeah.
they're suggesting is that working the land, I think, is a very noble thing to do personally. But I know that there's a sort of general perception that if you work the land, it's a lowly job. I absolutely disagree with that. I think it's a very important job. But this is where they're coming into that. You see what they're doing here? So that starts with formal education from the primary school level. So they're going for the little ones straight through to advanced agribusiness. There we go. That big agribusiness again coming in, and climate smart. There's that word,
Yeah,
techniques.
climate smart techniques. We just watch those climate smart techniques.
Correct. And
Yes.
again, yes, exactly, Kim. It does look like a laboratory. So if we can just go on down to the, so he
Frame the
framed
moment.
the moment as a national opportunity to move beyond traditional
Traditional
farming.
farming to food
Correct.
sovereignty.
Exactly. Where Barbadians have control over what they grow, how they grow
How
it,
they
and what
grow it
they
and
eat.
what they eat.
But if you're doing away with traditional farming, how does that work? Sorry. So again, if we are going to manage the climate crisis, which obviously we know is nonsense, we must modernize using agricultural technology and reduce water use, accelerates time to harvest, and enables climate control for poultry, dairy, fruits, and vegetables. So they're going to be controlling what this is again a laboratory situation where they're controlling the climate and the accelerating it to harvest. So what they're going to be using for that, chemicals, is going to what they're going to put
Yes.
into
Genetically
to
modified foods.
yes to force it to grow faster. You know.
Yes, yes, yes.
Sorry, Dave. I think
As
we're
they
nearly
did
coming
with
to the
the chickens and the turkeys, and shortening the development and growth of them. And a lot of us are contracting a lot of non-communicable diseases as a result of that,
end. You
affecting the
know.
lifespan of people. Yes.
Yeah. And the sector's biggest challenge is production. That is how we grow more, faster, and better. See again, it's all forced stuff, isn't it? Facilities like these can help us improve efficiency on farms and teach our people how to do things. There's a word again, smarter,
Yeah.
not just harder. So, is this really about food, or is it about profit and control? And
Mhm.
I'm asking questions tonight. I'm not saying that this is what this facility is absolutely about. I'm just asking the questions because, to me, reading between the lines, I think we're just not being told the whole story.
Yeah, I can't help but agree with you, Sonny, because when I look at what is being propagated in terms of the international community, when I have seen AOC in the United States of America speak to this matter of methane being produced by cows, and I actually had to laugh. And I really did, except that it's not a joke. They're taking this very seriously, and they're moving toward, the elimination of natural food and
Mhm.
toward the movement of creating that food. I mean, it's already on the shelves, I understand, in the US, where some of Bill Gates' foods are already on the shelves in the United States. And he's already been purchasing significant portions of property in the US. And I doubt it's being purchased to go into agriculture. My view is it's being purchased to prevent agriculture, because once you own it, you control it once you own it.
And do
Um,
you know that Bill Gates' meat is actually on Ireland? I've seen his Beyond Meat, and I've seen his intelligent, well, not intelligent. What's it called? Impossible Foods. Yeah, I've seen them in the supermarkets. In
wow, wow.
Barbados.
Well, I hope we're not stupid enough to buy it. I was must tell you that I was at the supermarket with my wife just yesterday, and I found it very interesting. But she said to me, she wanted to get some beef, and she wanted local beef. She picked up a package from out of the containers, that carry the frozen foods, and it was the regular frozen beef we would buy that is generally manufactured in places like New Zealand and so on. And I said, but you can get the fresh meat from Barbados right over in that area. And so she went and put it down. Actually, I went and put it down for her and picked it up. But it is deeply concerning when I follow the information that you have shared, and I can say that I have seen that information, Sonny, shared on more than one platform.
Yeah,
And I know it's not always a correct expression, but a thousand Frenchmen can't be wrong.
exactly. Um, if I could just, I know I work hard on time, but if I could just offer a few solutions, because I think that's really important. It's not just to point out the problems, but come up with some ideas.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important if you have a piece of land, your garden, or even if it's a window box or something, try and grow something that's going to feed you in it. If
Yes.
you if
Yes.
you've got a yard, get some chickens. If you've got a field, get some goats or some pigs. We need to take this seriously, and even maybe form a collective. Not everybody can buy these things, but if we can form a collective and
Mhm.
everybody has a piece of the pig, so you buy a pig in your village, and then when the pig is slaughtered, everybody gets a piece of the pig, that sort of thing. So I think that's important, and also, if you can save as much rainwater as you can, so you can actually water your food as you're growing it, because
You
I'm
know,
sure at some point they're going to stop us from having all the water we want.
I'm just sitting here really amazed listening to you because it could be my wife speaking. She's doing, it's fun, Sunny, it's funny, she is doing compost. None of the mango stuff and the banana stuff and the breadfruit skins and all of that, when we peel and so on. She takes all of that and creates compost with it. She's also collecting rainwater. She's actually doing this. she's
Brilliant.
she's trying to develop her own little garden in the back. I really have to try and give her a lot more support, even in the face of her current health issues. And as a matter of fact, it's her current health issues that have driven her in this direction. As a result of that, she's been doing significant research online into the areas that you have pointed out. And I think it is very important for us to stop uh, what we would call drinking the Kool-Aid and do
Yeah.
our own research and find out what is going on around in the world around us and what is
Yes.
being propagated. I call her what? Our climate change poster girl,
You mean
standing there and
the
yeah,
lady that's
yeah,
building all these big hotels on the coast, that lady? Yeah.
yeah. And I think I read somewhere recently. I was trying to find it while you were speaking, where an international court has just passed a law to charge countries that do not take the adequate steps toward reducing the impact on climate change. That has just been passed in the international court. I think it was just yesterday or something of that nature. But it just goes to show, and I hope that the Barbadians are listening to us. It just goes to show the influence that the globalists are having upon our local environment. And I
Yeah.
think it's very important that we push back.
Very much so, yeah, yeah, and of course the other thing which I was on about last time was the digital IDs. We've got to really stand against that, and not take those on at all, because that's going to be the digital prison that we won't be able to escape.
Yes, and you mentioned the word smart, and earlier in the program I actually touched on that aspect when we talked about smart processes. I can't remember what it was right now, but smart cities. That's it. Smart
Oh, yeah.
cities. And if you don't know, you need to do your research. This is to introduce what is called 15-minute cities. And people are thinking we are talking conspiracy and misinformation, but I'm happy to see that now people in the know are coming out and making it very clear to us that these are some of the things that are going on. I noticed, for example, Sunny, that just a few days ago, um, that the President of the United States rejected the World Health Organization amendments, citing threats to sovereignty and free speech. I
Yeah.
was I was I was really happy to
Yeah.
see that. And I'm saying to myself, what if America is going to do that? Then maybe the Barbados government needs to sit up and pay attention.
Exactly, because we are very close neighbours, aren't we?
Yes, we are. You
But what
you
you're
know,
saying about these smart cities, I know that for a fact, because I was invited onto a webinar purely
yes,
by accident about this very subject. But that's for another program. If
yes.
Marcia will have me on again, I'll talk you through the webinar that I actually sat through, and it was astounding. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct because it's all tying in together. It's all being networked and brought together to control. The bottom line is control. That is the bottom line.
Yeah.
The elite is controlling everything, controlling food, water, movement, transportation, spending, currency, everything. They want to rule. This is a part of the new world order that many people laugh in our faces and tell us, that's conspiracy. But there's actually been a book published. I think it was back in 1994. There's actually a book published by the UN with regards to this new world order and this world government. And
Yeah.
so, folks, this is not conspiracy. Barbados and the Caribbean is a part of the entire development, and it is up to us, the people. And I was happy to see the protests. And I'm trying to remember, was it Spain? I think it was Spain that had some significant farmer protests. Would I be correct with that?
Certainly, I know of them. Well, there were some in London for sure.
Yes,
There
yeah,
was, and there was a lot in the Netherlands.
yes, yes. It could be there. It could be there.
Yeah, I'm
And
not sure about Spain, maybe.
yeah, and I think there was some in France as well to do with currency and so on, and I think that also had to do with a change in the retirement age by 1 year. I believe it was in France. They had massive protests, and it just seems that in the Caribbean, we are just satisfied and prepared to sit back and que sera sera, whatever will be. But Sonny, I changed my outlook when I got grandchildren.
Hmm.
My whole outlook changed. I never believed that that would have happened. And there was an old preacher many years ago. He said to me, uh, "When you have your children, it's one thing, but you will discover that when you have your grandchildren, it's another." And I must say that when I think about the world that we are leaving for our grandchildren and our great grandchildren, I believe that it is at this time that we need to fight and we need to protest and we need to push back very strongly and firmly, even if it means striking, if it means, not buying things in the supermarket and letting it spoil on the shelf if it has to. I think we need to engage this and engage it very aggressively.
Yes, and if we don't do it now, we will be too late.
Yes, yes. And even in the context of what you're discussing, where the water is concerned, you're absolutely correct in terms of the amount of water that we're losing from leakages and old pipes and so forth. But then again, as you again rightly pointed out, I mean, we've just had, I think you all would have had it, a deluge of water in the north of the island, more so than the rest of the island. I heard some people I know from St. Lucie, St. Peter, were indicating that there was a lot of rain up that side over the last couple of days.
Yeah.
And why have they not put in place and spent the money to hold or to secure that water? Why allow it just to flow straight into the sea? I mean, years ago, we could understand that. You didn't have the technology, you maybe didn't have the know how and the capabilities and so on. But that is not the case today. And it just seems that if there is this deliberate act not to
Yes.
do anything about it because there is this global agenda that
Yeah.
our prime minister is the poster girl for. And I must tell you that you're talking to the choir when you speak to me, you're speaking to the choir concerning the matter of climate change. I have never bought into it from the day Al Gore introduced it.
Yeah.
Because
No.
if I recall correctly, he was the vice president at the time
Yeah.
that introduced this whole matter of sustainable development, and they poured billions of dollars. And I think it was just a case where people um, just got a lot of money.
Very much so. It was his film called something like The Inconvenient Truth, and it's been absolutely debunked. I think it was called
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
I mean, he's flown around on his private jet. He's got beachfront property, which I'm assuming he's getting insured. So
I hope so.
the insurance companies aren't too worried if they're insuring beachside properties. So yeah, it's just a load, and everything is just upside down now. They lie and they lie and they lie again, and it's just we've just got to open our eyes. And nobody's coming to save us apart from Jesus. So
Yeah.
we have to really just stand together. And there are so many more of us than there are of these so-called, well, I call them the deletes.
Yes, no, you're absolutely correct. Because when we take a look at it, like I said, you look at it globally, you look at what's happening in your country. We can give away land to Afro-Exim Bank, but we can't give away land to our farmers to
Yeah.
produce more food. We can't subsidize our farmers, but we can subsidize other aspects of the economy that are not bearing the same fruit. We went through a pandemic that revealed to us the need for food security and the
Mhm.
need to develop our agricultural sector. Yet there are massive components of agricultural land that are being converted into housing and development.
Mhm.
And we are going to have a minister of agriculture that tells us nonsense. I can't even repeat what he says, to be honest with you, Sonny, because I don't read it because it's absolute rubbish as far as I'm concerned. I really am not even interested in hearing what he has to say, because there's nothing that promotes the whole developmental aspect of agriculture in the country.
No.
I don't know. I don't know how long you've been here on island, or if you were
I've
born
been
here.
permanently. I've lived here for 10 years,
Yeah.
but I've been coming. Well, I started coming nearly 40 years ago now. So, oh, yeah, a long time ago.
Right. Well, you would be familiar with the fact that along our roads, as we drove along our roads, we could have picked our peas. We had things called gooseberries that we were able to, some of the richest sources of what they call it. Anyhow, all these vitamin things. I'm not the greatest at all of this. We had acerola cherry trees. The acerola cherry in Barbados was one of the richest sources for vitamin C in the world. And you
Yeah,
can hardly find a cherry tree in the country today.
I had one in my garden in St Lucie. Yeah, delicious.
Yes, absolutely delicious and definitely a very rich source of vitamin C.
Yeah,
We used to drive along and tamarind trees. I'm beginning to see, we go into the supermarket now. There are these boxes of tamarinds for costing a fortune. We used to pick them off of our trees. We
mhm,
used to boil them and everything. As a child, I ate so much of that. I'm amazed that I'm not a tamarind at the moment. But it's just sad to see this, and I can't help but think that we are seeing a manifestation of a level of evil. And I know there are people who may believe in different ways, and I respect that. But evil is evil. You don't have to be a faith-based person to know when something is wrong. When
exactly.
something is wrong, it's wrong.
Yeah,
And it's sad to see that as Barbadians, we just seem to be prepared to sit back and just let it happen.
yeah,
I'm just saddened with that. And I just wish that we had more people who would stand up and come forward.
yeah.
Uh, and I do appreciate you sharing what you shared tonight. I'm glad. You know why I'm glad? I don't feel alone anymore.
Good.
No, really, some people, I've spoken to this even within our Christian leaders circles.
Mhm.
And I'm asking the question: what are you telling your people that are sitting in front of your pulpits every Sunday about the new world they're facing? How are they going to be dealing with the matter of the digital currency? What are you telling them? How are you telling them to deal with it, to deal with the matter of food? I listened to those people in the video you shared just now, how they're using the cow manure as fertilizer. This is something we
Yes.
used to do. My
Yes.
my dad was in the sugar industry. I spent many years in the sugar factories with him, walking around and drinking my fill of liquor and eating my sweets of the molasses sugar. But I remember all that bagasse and mud that was taken out of the factory, put into our fields. I remember the times that we would rest the fields, Sonny. They would do yam and potatoes, and then they would rest the field, and they would put some other crop in that would put nutrients that the yams and the potatoes needed. And
Yeah.
then at another point, they would put in the sugar cane. We had some of the best sugar cane you would have ever seen in your life. I
Yeah.
remember sucking some of the cane, and when you sucked it, the juice was running down all your mouth, and it was soft and it was delicious.
Yeah.
Today we have some grass growing for cane that can
Mhm.
hardly produce 13,000 tons of cane.
Right. Yeah.
Sonny, I grew up with 186,000 tons of sugar
Makes no sense, does it?
being
But,
produced in Barbados.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I think programs like this will help. I watched Ernesto Cook on Marcia's show the other day, and brilliant. He's got a great channel as well on YouTube. So if we can all try and just spread the message and get more people to really understand that it's not incompetence, that this why this is happening. It's not politicians being incompetent; they're being used as puppets to bring in this global agenda.
Yes,
It's
yes.
happening in every country, so you can't deny it now unless you're walking around with your eyes closed.
Yes, yes. I'm reading the comments in the chat here as well. We have Aaron Hunt saying we collect rainwater every time it rains. Justin speaking about backyard slaughtering of animals is already outlawed. I remember when we used to kill our pigs and cows in our backyard, and we would cut up the pig and share it with the neighbors. The neighbors would come through and buy their so many pounds of pork and so on. My
Yes,
mom and dad had special scales, those old scales that we have. I still have one of them to this very day. I still have one. Um, there's another comment here. One big problem, people don't mind doing garden planting, but in some areas, the monkeys get
oh,
to them first.
I
Yeah,
have two mango trees as well, and yeah, they're here all the time. Yeah, you have to
yes.
fight to get there first. Yeah,
We
it's
have
great.
the same problem here, right outside of my window here. We have the same problem. And you know what angers me, Sonny? I wouldn't mind if the critters just ate the mango,
Mm.
but you're
Fight and
going to
throw.
take a bite and throw it.
Yeah,
And that's that. I'm really upset about that. Pedro Gemon says that gardening is great for health, physically and mentally, and I can
yeah,
confirm that. My wife often goes outside to de-stress.
yes,
She
perfect.
goes
Just
outside.
ground. Yeah,
Yeah,
put your
yeah.
bare feet on the ground and ground yourself. It's so good for you.
Yes, that is something that as children we used to do a lot of, but we didn't know.
Hmm.
And even now as adults, I was just telling my wife a couple of days ago that I can't even walk around outside now barefooted because I've been in shoes and slippers and Crocs and all these things whenever you go outside. And if I go outside now, I almost have to tippy toe because the grass and the stones hurt my feet so
Yeah,
badly.
yeah,
you know I'm just, like I said, checking the chat. Here's somebody that says this is square four. Bill Gates bought acres of land in the UK, and he plants NGO. Gates and them planning for the human race, and people around the world are pushing back. I hope
yeah.
we can push back here in Barbados as well. Here, I think I see Judy Doughton Jill. She says here that I compost in also to and grow in my own food. To with what little I have, I grow in the fridge, barrels, old bath pans. That's My wife does the same thing. Absolutely the same thing.
Brilliant.
Um,
We've got to remember the skills that our grandmothers used to know and our
yes.
grandfathers used to, and they lived off the land. So we really have to try and teach our youngsters as well how to grow food.
Yes, well, here's a comment by Ivor Taylor. My boss does classes for teaching gardening at her
Oh,
home, and
yeah,
I again grew up. I was waiting for our next guest to come on, and that's why I've just given you some extra time, really, but I haven't seen them show up as yet. But I remember we used to do gardening in the school. My mom was the
yes,
principal at Boscobel Girls School, and we used to do gardening. We actually planted peanuts. I
yeah,
remember growing
brilliant.
peanuts and
Wow.
my beans, my little beans, and passion fruit.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
again, we tried that, but the monkeys won on that one. That was a shame, but yeah,
yes, 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 that is a fact. Well, I heard someone in one of our shows quite clearly said that they'd love to kill all the monkeys on the island. I know they're cute and they're lovely and whatnot, but they're a real menace.
they
Um,
are. Unfortunately, they are,
Sandra
and
Charles
please the dogs horribly.
Sandra Charles says the problem I've seen with some people in Barbados is that they're not as sensible as they want to believe. I do believe most are quite gullible.
Mm.
Um,
Not just
you know,
Barbados. I think that's worldwide, unfortunately.
yes, unfortunately, it is. The Caribbean has transitioned to these narratives in calculated steps by their leaders. This is an interesting one by Patrick Designs. He says the things in that is that these elitist demons and workers of iniquity somehow don't and won't understand that they are doomed for failure because the Almighty Father has said they will fail.
Amen to
You
that.
know, Yeah, I can say amen to that as well. I'm always reminded, Sonny, that, a old saying, I learned, God does not sleep and he does not slumber.
Hmm.
And at some point, he's going to respond. And it is still, I am told, a very fearful thing to fall into the hands of a living God. It's amazing the things he can do. And sometimes it's frightening to me. I remember once saying to Prime Minister Arthur, this was just before the 2008 election, I think it was, that he didn't need to be unpopular for God to remove him. And at that time, he was quite a popular prime minister.
Right,
I think there was a poll actually done between himself and Mr. Thompson, and he was the more popular of the two. But he lost the government in 2008.
right. Yeah.
And I'm absolutely convinced that our prime minister is going to be removed from office, and it may not be in the manner that we expect. We may be thinking with regards to an election, but I do feel that there's something that is likely to befall her, and it's going to happen in such a manner that there will be no doubt who that judgment comes from, because it is wickedness.
It is, but the trouble is, who would replace? The whole sort of political spectrum is just full of not very good people. And either
Yes.
they might go in with really good intentions, but they're so easily corrupted, aren't they? They're so
Yeah.
easily
Yes.
bought or frightened or blackmailed or whatever it is, but controlled basically. And that's the problem: is how do we get somebody who can remain alive, who is for the people, and who is honest and won't just succumb to these globalists.
Yes. No, you're absolutely correct, because history shows us. And I think a gentleman that spoke earlier in the program quite passionately and very firm, he referred to Gaddafi. And we saw what happened to Gaddafi when he took a stand. As a matter of fact, if my mind goes back, it also happened to the
Saddam Hussein.
president of Iraq,
Saddam
Saddam
Hussein.
Hussein. Yes, he was put in by the. Well, don't let me say something that they might want to defame me. He was put in by a regime in another country,
Yeah, I know
um,
what you mean.
and when he didn't toe the line, uh, they took him out.
Yeah,
Um, just today, I saw an article or video with Traore in Burkina Faso
yeah.
starting the construction of the largest, if not one of the largest airport in Africa,
Well,
entirely on Burkina Faso's funds, not a cent borrowed to do it.
impressive. That's how it's
You
going to
know,
go, isn't it? Yeah.
yes, and I'm wondering why our government does not engage African countries of that nature. If you need money, let's deal with our African neighbors and see
Yes.
what we can do with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's so much so interwoven with corruption. It's going to be a long way. It'll take a lot to unpick it all, but yeah. But we
Yeah,
live in hope, and again, all we can do is share what we know with as
yes.
many people as we can. Trust in the Lord, and try and stand together, fight it, and pray a lot.
Well, I really thank you, Sonny, because it's good to hear it coming from a number of different persons.
Hmm.
And as I said, that old saying, "A thousand Frenchmen can't be wrong." I know in times they can be, but more often than not, when you hear people who often don't even know one another, are not even related to one another, are drawings from sources independent of each other, and they're coming together saying the same thing, then I believe it is time for us to start paying attention. And I've often said here, and I've just touched on it and said, I don't want to say too much about it because I am mindful of the fact that as soon as you start to push back on a globalist level, you become a target.
Yeah,
And indeed, this whole matter of climate change, I will say it probably for the first time publicly, is a farce.
Yeah.
This entire thing is a farce. I mean, when I hear Mr. Gates talking about the reduction of carbon dioxide, I ask the question, so what are the plants going to feed on?
Yeah, he obviously doesn't know about photosynthesis, does he? He must have missed that class at school.
But he's never been to a class to do with agriculture, never been to a class to do with agricultural development of any kind, animals or otherwise. Why don't you just stick to what you know? You never went involved with pharmaceutical drugs, but you're dealing with pharmaceutical drugs and pharmaceutical industries, and it's purely on a money making perspective. That is all that it is. He knows nothing about what he speaks,
Yeah.
and he's just hell bent, and I must say, not very high on my agenda.
No, he's obviously, money's his god, and that, well, that'll be his downfall eventually. But what a shame he's not using the money he's obviously very
Yeah,
clever to make. What a shame he doesn't use it for good rather than the way he's using it.
yes, and I'm happy to see the African countries beginning to push back,
Yeah.
beginning to disconnect where he's concerned. In terms
Yes.
of
Yeah.
their food supply, their seed supply. There's
Yeah.
no need for Africa to get seed from anybody. Africa is a massive country with a lot of production of wheat and other crops. They don't need anybody to get their seeds,
No.
and it's better to go that direction. Well,
Yeah.
Sunny, thank you so very, very much. I really appreciate you having taken the time. I know we've been a bit longer, had you for a bit longer, and I'm so glad we did.
It's absolutely my pleasure. I really enjoyed talking to you, Dr. Ferdinand. Thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure of mine, and I've absolutely enjoyed sharing this time with you. It's been informative, eye-opening. I've seen a number of things where the farmers and the people that you showed in the video have actually confirmed a lot of what we already did here in Barbados.
Yes.
And they're fighting for it over there. And
Yeah.
so why should we just roll over and allow something else to be introduced here? And I take your point, that it is difficult to find people who will represent the citizens of a country sincerely and honestly, because when they do try to do so, there are threats on their lives,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of fear that it does exist. And I believe there are some people there, but they're not prepared to take the risks
Yeah.
to do so. But God, let me put it that way, but God. So thank you so very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you being here. I look forward to you whenever you are able to, and whenever Marcia has you back to touch on that other subject that you mentioned, the
Indeed.
whole aspect